Well, I'm with Jody Lee, who otherwise known as the Skinny Poet, who I've worked with now for probably up to nearly 4 years because we did a thing together before COVID, and which gives a time frame, and where I mentored you, I think, in running poetry
You
groups
did,
and
yeah.
such. And what work we've done together has been mainly with the recovery community, but I've also, he's a brilliant poet in his own right, and be outside that, and so I've pushed a few gigs his way. So, Jody, what was the first thing we did together?
Well, actually, I think I attended one of your workshops. It's the very first time we met at Darsham, and then from there, I was already doing a few bits here and there, as you know. But yeah, you invited me in to help assist doing the weekly workshops online. This was coming into COVID, I think. Or it might have been pre-COVID that we started them. Yeah,
Now, what was
it's a
the
while
workshop?
ago.
What were the workshops?
That it was just a weekly poetry workshop for people in recovery, people, and that sort of covered everything: people with mental health issues, recovery from accidents, addiction issues, to come and just practice writing. So you would offer up exercises each week, read a poem and reflect on it, and then, help people who wanted to improve their poetry with form, rhyming, this sort of thing. Yeah, and we've done that every week, and they're still going now.
And we did, so we did one 3-day at Darsham. Darsham is a community centre it's right in the middle of the countryside. But the great advantage is that it's built in the building is an old railway station, so it's accessible by train. So, and as a lot of people in the recovery community haven't got their own transport, it was somewhere where people would come from different towns in East Anglia, or from Suffolk, so they could come from Lowestoft, Bury St Edmunds, and Ipswich, and get there easily by public transport. So, in those 3 days, so, and how did that affect your practice? That 3 days? Because I think on those 3 days I had you down. Did I pay you? I might have paid you.
No, not on the first 3 days. It was after that. Yeah, the first 3 days at Darsham was one I just attended through Recovery Connections. I think I was still connected with recovery then, so I'm in recovery, and I was still very much connected and able to use some of their services. So I was a service user, and they got funding for these poetry workshops. So yeah, I was just an attendee, but I enjoyed it immensely. I think it really helped with building confidence, being able to share poetry and just appreciate others people's as well. So in community, working in a group like that was something I hadn't really experienced, to be honest. It was always a much more isolated affair, writing poetry and performing it. I'd done a few performances at that point, mostly in the recovery sector, so at recovery festivals and things like this. But yeah, being able to share the community sort of really opened up to different forms of poetry, different experience, and boosted confidence levels, I think, more than anything.
And we built, during COVID, we actually put together a play, which we did on Zoom. So we had, which was, and you were an integral part of keeping that group together.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun as well. Again, that was something completely different for me. So a whole new creative expression, and I've always enjoyed the reason I done poetry. I loved writing, but I kind of loved the play with language and the shortness of poetry. It's you can write something and it's over quickly. With writing stories, I was never so good at that because it's much more longer process. I like the quick fix of the poetry. So yeah, that was a real different practice, being able to work with other people in collaboration, writing these scripts and stories that we done, which was an adaptation of I forget it was
It was $1 million, the £1 million note.
That's it, an adaptation of
by
that.
Mark Twain.
That's the one. Yeah, we sort of done it in a modernised setting and then performed it live on Zoom, didn't we, across the World Storytelling Cafe.
So yes, and I'd used that play as quite a lot of writers had that worked in prisons. So it was one of those nice adaptable short stories. And of course it's been used in film with Eddie Murphy's Changing Places is based on the same story. Now I want to go back in your history before you met me. Now there's one of the because this is I think we need to shout this from the rooftops. That you might well have ended up in an incarcerated state had not it been for one magistrate. Would you care to tell that story?
Yes, yeah, okay. So, right, like I said, I'm in recovery, a history of serious drug addiction, mostly around heroin and cocaine. So at the time I was heavily involved in crime, which was normally shoplifting to fund my habit. And I was very, very bad at it. I was not good at it at all, which meant I got caught. So I ended up going to court, and at this time I'd been writing poetry, but really keeping it quiet. I'd been writing to myself. It had kind of helped me through reflection, through my addiction. When I went up to magistrate court, I was very much looking at going to prison. That's what I was expecting. My lawyer at the time was like, right, just tell me anything about yourself. You know, you're probably going to go to prison, but we need to sort of humanize you as much as possible. Just talk about yourself and things you love. And I said about the poetry. And it turned out that the head magistrate loved poetry. And he actually said to me, he brought this up in his sentencing. And he said, I'm a big fan of poetry. And, you know, looking at your sentence, and he actually gave me the choice. He said, you can either go to prison. I've forgotten to tell you this. He said, you can either go to prison or you can have the DTTO. But I really encourage you to carry on writing poetry. I think it's a really valuable thing to do. So of course I picked the DTTO, and it took me a long way as well.
Could you explain for what DT?
Is? A drug treatment testing order. So I was on probation for a year, and I had to turn up once a week and give a drug test, and there were other probationary measures as well. So I had to obviously meet a probation officer, and I had to go to certain courses and things like this just to try and re-engage. And they actually put me on a creative writing course as well back then, and they gave me funding to go to the gym and things like this. So this was right back, it was very early when the NHS was doing a lot of the drug advisory service. So it was about 2001, 2002. But because he said that, I had always kept it very secret. There was a bit of shame around it, I suppose, because when I was younger, I grew up in a bit rough and tumble neighbourhood on the council estate, you know, and you didn't write poetry, you get teased for that sort of thing, you know. So I'd always kept it a bit to myself. But sharing this with him and seeing someone of such high stature actually saying, no, I love poetry and I value this, it really switched my perception of it. I was like, oh wow, okay, this isn't just something that I'm doing. This is something that is actually broadly appreciated outside of my circle. It sort of gave me that new viewpoint on it, which was immensely powerful for me at that time. And it really felt to me like that, the emphasis being put on the appreciation of poetry and me getting a chance to at least do a drug treatment testing order, which required a lot of work on my part, you know, and if I didn't complete it, I would have gone to prison. But that opportunity being there because of this appreciation really made me feel like it kind of saved me in a way, and it made me knuckle down a bit more on my writing as well. I took it to heart what he said, and I started writing more, and from that led into some performances through recovery, being able to share my experience, particularly around addiction and recovery, became a powerful voice for me and a powerfully connective tool for other people in recovery.
And since then, I did some mentoring with you and running workshops.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how much, and we did some interesting stuff with music and with circus, and then you started running your own courses in hostels, in men's hostels in Lowestoft, I think.
Yeah, it's gone from strength to strength really since then, and I definitely I see you as kind of a mentor figure in that role in the workshop, because I did not really have a clue about it. I was, like I say, writing to myself, doing bits of performing, but the whole idea of a workshop and the community of writing in that way, yeah, it really opened up my eyes to it and how much I loved it. When the chances come up for me to work with other people in recovery doing workshops, I thought, right, okay, maybe I can do this because of the experiences you had provided, and asking me to come along and assist with the workshop as well. I think that was a huge boost for me when you done that. That really, really.
So now you're just you for the last few years you've been on counselling courses, and you're just about, are you coming towards the end of that?
I'm writing my dissertation at the minute, so I graduate this year in a BA honours in counselling, integrative counselling and psychotherapy, which really dovetails quite nicely with recovery and my experiences there, and even with creativity. There's something kind of inherently creative about the practice of counselling and psychotherapy, and it's a great place to be able to bring in creative interventions. So it's kind of just
and for you in particular, it's been quite difficult with the head to be dealing with some of the stuff on your course. How much have you found the weekly, but sort of having to drop away from that and come to the poetry sessions every week? How helpful has that been in keeping you, or is it just, you know, made you feel, I don't want to go back to that?
Well, it's really interesting actually, because getting that academic head on is really difficult. You get stuck down this certain way of thinking and writing. And often when the poetry workshops come up, I'm like, oh God, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. But it's one of those things every single time, and I know this from experience now, that feeling of resistance is because I'm tired and I've got my analytical brain on. I'm like, no, go to it, because I know every single time I do, I just feel so much better afterwards. It's kind of, I don't know it's very hard to describe being able to sort of let go of those strict parameters, if you like, those academic sort of borders that are there, doing things in a certain way, and to just open up to a bit more freedom of writing, the creative expression, and wherever it allows you to go. There's something very it's unrestricting, I think is what it is. It makes me feel more relaxed, and just chatting to people as well. It's always, because I sit there at the computer and bark at my partner if she comes in the door. I'm like, oh, go away, I'm busy. So being able to actually connect with people is very good.
So you're a walking advocate for the arts, in not in just in recovery, but as an integral part of society. How it's and this is my perception.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, because I'm biased, but it's that it's part of the whole that keeps it's like the oil, the lubrication
Yeah.
that keeps us rolling, and without the arts, we're in deep trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean I've been actually studying and researching this as part of counseling and psychotherapy, and the benefits of it are huge, and there's so much empirical evidence that supports this anyway. Absolutely huge. But on a personal level, my experience of it is exactly that as well. Um, Throughout all of my addiction, through my recovery, creativity and art has given me and people I know as well a space to express ourselves, I suppose. It's a space to be able to freely express yourself no matter what that may look like or feel like. Being able to share experiences, incredibly important, otherwise we start to feel isolated. It's very easy when you're going through difficult things to feel like, oh, nobody understands, nobody gets it. And you know that's a trick. Other people do go through really difficult things as well, and it's a real connecting tool. Art, I think it really is. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Jody, and we all wish you incredibly well on this journey that you're well down the road of. But the next part was as a therapist and as a fantastic performance poet. So thank you for your work, Jody.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
How can people find out more about your performance poetry?
You can look me up as the Skinny Poet on Facebook. I mean, it's been a little bit sparse where I've been working on this degree for the last 3 years, but it's now that's coming to an end. I want to focus a little bit more on the writing and performing, workshops, things like this. So yeah, I'll be engaging more with that, or you can email me on theskinnypoet@gmail.com.